Welcome to the midweek macro. It is Wednesday, the 21st of January 2026. It is just gone 11:10 Eastern time. Just for a time reference, of course, there is a lot happening around the world at the moment, as you've noticed from the headline. Put this down as gas, Greenland, and geopolitics galore. A bit of alliteration to lighten up everyone's Wednesday. Before we crack on with having a look around the markets, just a quick reminder that there's been some excellent podcasts already and posts released this week. John Forrest Little of the Silver Academy spoke why 2026 is the perfect setup for silver. He also mentioned a few mining companies that are going to be worth keeping an eye on as well. Paul Musson was on and discussed why he believes a collapse is not inevitable and how to potentially position your portfolio moving forwards. Paul has over 30 years of experience with regards to financial management. So that's definitely worth listening to. And then with my friend Zeko over at Crack the Market, we worked on a really big article over Christmas and the start of January, and we deep dived into uranium. That article was completely free. We looked at why uranium is entering a nuclear powered super cycle, further enhanced by actually Japan reopening Fukushima. As of, I believe, the other day. So, yes, highly recommend you go and read that. It's a very long article. Get yourself a cup of coffee, but it is free for absolutely everyone. We had a lot of new subscribers, paid subscribers and free subscribers last week. So I just want to extend a warm welcome to each and every single one of you as well. It's a delight to see the channel growing. We're nearly at 5,000 subscribers across the board, so I'm very proud of that. And again, that's down to you for supporting the channel and continuing to share the channel with your network. We'll have a quick snapshot of the market. So as mentioned, it's just on about 11:15 Eastern on Wednesday the 21st of January. First market to look at actually today is natural gas. Now natural gas, at Contrarian Capitalist, we look at the spot price on Pepperstone via TradingView. Believe it or not, at the time of recording, it is up 47% this week alone. There are factors at play. We'll get onto the geopolitics in a minute. Of course, quite a big cold snap. Anyone that likes NFL that watched that Chicago game on Sunday, that was cold. It looked cold from watching it. But that is one reason why. So that demand has shot up significantly. But also with Greenland and with the EU, I think what's going on there is we're seeing a lot of talk. So a lot of talk about tariffs and a lot of talk about demand for this and demand for that and supply for this. And, we're going to, impose embargo. A lot of talk happening this week. And I think that the demand aspect of everything has really helped to shoot this price up. Again, it's about 47% up at the time of recording. It did reach over $5. It currently sits at $4.78. Considering it opened the week at $3.63, that is a hell of a movement without a shadow of a doubt. So that's worth keeping an eye out for. Again, I know that if you followed Giacomo Prandelli of the Merchants News, he's been on the podcast before. He talks a lot about natural gas, and he has spoken quite elegantly within the last week that what the US are potentially doing here is they are looking to corner that gas market with relation to trading with the EU. And of course, the natural gas spot price via Pepperstone looks at US gas. So just as an FYI, started there with gas. Looking around the commodities markets, we've got gold up on the week, currently sitting at 4,852. We have silver at $93.85. Quick look at platinum. Platinum up at $2,550. Palladium is sitting at $1,181. Everything I've just said is up on the week thus far. And have a quick look over at copper. Copper on a per pound basis, because that's what we look at. That's actually down on the week. It currently sits at $5.84 per pound. and a quick look at WTI, West Texas Intermediate, that is at $60.50. That is also up on the week as well. Again, as put into the headline, Greenland is a hot topic. Obviously, people are meeting at Davos. I imagine by the time me doing this video and everyone saying what they need to say and people negotiating and talking over at Davos, a lot of things can change. But I think that Don Durrett highlighted this a couple of weeks ago, that the key word at the moment is uncertainty. And when there is uncertainty, what happens is people look to flock to more safe haven opportunities. I think this is why we have seen gold get to, again, 4,800 plus, up 5% on the week, up $250 on the week thus far, is because all of this talk about taking over Greenland or negotiating a deal for Greenland, whatever it might be, that creates uncertainty. That is reflected in the equities markets. We'll go through the equities markets in a bit. But that's reflected in them. That's also then reflected in gold. And as we've seen, I say, and other people say as well, what happens in commodities markets, gold normally leads the way. So if gold continues to move onwards and upwards, then the chances are silver is going to continue to do the same. If silver's doing it, then the chances are things like platinum and palladium are going to do the same. Very interesting to see that copper is actually down on the week. Oil, again, up on the week. Not a surprise either. So that's why Don Durrett says that the gold chart is the chart to watch out for commodities wise, because if that continues to go onwards and upwards, then the chances are everything else is going to do so as well. And I also hold my hands up that in the traffic light system, in the commodity wrap that's available every Friday, I have been cautious so far this year. I've been neutral on most assets in the short term because there's a lot of things going on. I definitely didn't have Greenland and what's going on now on my bingo card, but I'll hold my hands up and say that if I'm wrong and it looks like I've been a bit too neutral, I should have been a bit more bullish, then I'll hold my hands up and admit that that is indeed the fact. That's why with the traffic light system, whether it's on the commodity wrap or the market wrap, there's always a disclaimer. Don't just take what I say and act on it. Always do your own homework. There's going to be different people out there saying different things, and of course, I think we're all at the hands of any black swan event that can happen. So I'll hold my hands up and say that I've probably been a bit too neutral throughout the start of 2026. Certainly from a generic commodities point of view, it's been a strong start, but I think we have to have a look at the impact, of course, of the amount of geopolitical uncertainty. I just want to reiterate a stance on Greenland as well. And again, there's a lot of talks going on. I put some links into some articles towards the end of the post that will come with this audio. And I've said this before about Greenland, and I'll say this again, is what I think is happening with President Trump and so forth, is that if you look at a map of the world and you look at a map of where the USA is, and you look at a map of the Americas, so North America, Central America, and South America, have a look at a map and then have a look at where Greenland is. Greenland is a massive landmass just to the east of Canada or northeast of Canada, depends on what map you're looking at. It's a massive place. And I've said this last week and I'll say it again. I'm not advocating for the USA to go in and overtake, Greenland. I'm not advocating for that. But if you look at a map and you look at commodities and you look at everything as depolitically as possible, even if that's a word, I don't know, it makes common sense for them to do what they're doing. I'm not advocating for it. I'm not saying it will happen either, but it makes common sense that I think as part of the BRICS for the Americas, which I think is what's in operation here, then yes, this is why we've seen things happen in Venezuela. This is why we might see other things happen throughout the Americas as well as an alignment looks to happen. And I think this is all part of the BRICS for America or the Americas, which is why I think there's a lot of talk about Greenland at the moment. Now, I've never been to Greenland, so it's not for me to comment, on everything about Greenland. It's a part of Denmark. But if you have a look at Denmark's, policies on energy and being part of, dare I say, the Davos crowd, that the WEF own nothing and be happy, and things like that, you can see why that they've not even tapped into Greenland's resources that much. And I can understand from President Trump's point of view that from a geostrategic point of view, why Greenland would actually make a lot of sense. Again, I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying that from a commodity point of view, from an energy security point of view, and for all these untapped natural resources, what's going on actually does make quite a bit of sense. Now, as we've seen in commodity markets, as we've just been through, that is creating uncertainty. Then that is impacting positively on the gold price, silver price, and most other commodities. I say the exception that we've gone through there's copper, which is actually down. So that's one thing. Now, if we go to the equities markets, again, they are somewhat muted thus far on the week. So I'm just bringing up the S&P 500 here. It is currently at 6,860. It's slightly down on the week so far. The Nasdaq's actually it's got a green candle, but it's showing negative numbers. Again, we saw with the US equities actually gapped down to start the week. I appreciate it was Martin Luther King Day on Monday, the 19th, so the US markets weren't open anyway. We've also seen here back to the Dow Jones at 48,900. Again, that gapped down to start the week, and it's in the red as well. So we've got S&P, Nasdaq, and Dow Jones. They all gapped down to start the week. The Nasdaq is showing a green candle but red numbers, whereas the S&P 500, Dow Jones are both showing negative numbers on the week and a red candle thus far. Moving on to the VIX. Again, the VIX has spiked up. It is at 17.6. So again, although it's had a spike up this week of about 11%, it's still at a normal market volatility stage. It's not indicating anything abnormal. It's just saying that normal expected volatility, that's where we're at. So again, nothing to be overly concerned about there. And with the dollar index has taken a bit of a hit so far this week. It is down 0.67%, which equates to 0.661 basis points or so forth. Currently sits at 98.71. I wrote last week that it wouldn't surprise me if the Dixie does continue to surprise to the upside. I don't think it's going to be a part of any ongoing long-term trend to the upside, but certainly from a downside point of view, I'm in the Luke Gromen camp. I think there's a structural bear market in the dollar index that's forming, and so I do think it's going to head downwards for the foreseeable future. Ultimately, we've got to see what happens throughout the end of the week. Again, we've got no idea who's going to say what. We've seen that again. Tariffs have been thrown out there. These tariffs are going to be put on if nothing's agreed, and we've got the EU saying a lot of things in retaliation. I honestly don't know how that's going to play out. I'm not going to sit here and hypothesize that, because that could go in an abundance of directions. I think the best thing to do is sit on your hands and again look at what happened when it happened, rather than try to trade anything like that at all. Again, if we go back and take a 30,000 foot view of everything, I think the important thing to say here is that with the uncertainty, and that's a key word today, with the uncertainty that's happening thus far this week, we've seen that gold has reacted positively. So it's gone up. If gold continues to go up, and a few people out there will say that 5,200 is about right for the target moving forwards. If that were to happen, then the chances are that other commodities are going to follow suit. Of course, the equities markets might not follow suit. Okay, they might be a bit different, because as we saw at the back end of March and April in 2025, the minute there was Liberation Day and all these tariff announcements, the markets didn't like that. They did not like the uncertainty. They do not like uncertainty. So if there is more uncertainty to take place moving forwards with a war of words or whatever it might be, then you can expect the equities to be quite choppy moving forwards. That's where I stand at present. And again, I'll refer people back to the traffic light system in the commodity wrap and the equities wrap that again come out every Friday and Sunday respectively. I'll hold my hands up and say that I've been a bit too neutral on most commodities. But again, I'll happily sit here and say when I was wrong. I'll happily sit here and say when I was right as well. One thing and one last thing before we wrap up is to say that Trump has said that he wants immediate negotiations to acquire Greenland, but insists that he won't use force. Again, I have no idea how any of this is going to play out, but I will go back to the overarching thesis. I think all of this is to do with creating a BRICS for the Americas. So, whilst I'm not advocating that the US goes in there and acquires Greenland, if you look from a commodity point of view and an energy point of view, then what is happening actually does make a lot of sense. Whether it's right or wrong, we can debate that all day long, depends on your angle and what you want to say, but it does make a lot of sense. Are China, if the US were to acquire Greenland, for example, are China and Russia likely to head over to that part of the world and start fighting about it? I imagine that's very unlikely to happen. Could they retaliate and China look to intensify things with regards to Taiwan? Yeah, maybe they could. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but we'll see. That could be a retaliatory move, a retaliatory move. The other thing to bear in mind is with NATO, quite simply, is that if Trump wants out of NATO, and that's understandable, then what he's doing at the moment is probably a good way of going about it. Because if his ultimate aim is to remove the US from NATO, so it removes them from financing Ukraine and so forth, then actually by doing what he's doing, the EU might kick the US out of NATO. I don't even know if that's legally possible, but let's just say it did happen. Then you're giving President Trump exactly what he would have wanted in the first place, which is to remove themselves from NATO. Again, I know there's a bit of 4D, 5D, 6D chess at play here, but we have to think about the bigger picture. Europe is stuck in the middle. Obviously, it's got a superpower, albeit a slightly waning superpower to the west in the US, but it's also got superpowers to the east of it in China and Russia as well. I know that Tom Luongo is going to be back on the Contrarian Capitalist in February, I think in the first couple of weeks of February. And again, I know that he is going to really deep dive into absolutely everything that happens between now and then. So again, stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't already, because he is a fantastic guest to listen to. But do try and think of other spins as well. So if Greenland were to go to the US and the EU kicked the US out of NATO, if they wanted to do that, then Trump's probably got everything that he wants. And again, does that help to shape the energy security with regards to the US moving forward? The chances are that that might be the case, and that could have been the ultimate aim all along. Again, we'll go back to that word uncertainty. That the more this goes on, all you have to do is just flash your mind back to March and April of 2025, I should say. And again, just remember that all that tariff tantrums, all that, the tariff talk, Liberation Day, look what happened to the markets then. We have far exceeded a V-shaped recovery in terms of US dollar terms since then. And again, we could see a similar thing playing out this year. Going back to another podcast, actually, I recorded this morning with Tom Bradshaw. He came back onto the show and he's looked at a variety of indicators that are there that indicate that the US could be going into recession sooner rather than later. One of the indicators has predicted a US recession 16 times out of the last 16 possibilities. So this could be time number 17. That is going to go out to paid subscribers today. It will go out to free subscribers Thursday or Friday. Again, I highly recommend you watch that video. Tom is an excellent chartist. And he's also then on the back of that got some very interesting thoughts about gold and silver. Because if we do see a big recession happen, and again, it is possible, if we do see that happen, then there's going to be a broader sell-off across the board. It won't just be equities. It will be gold. It will be silver as well. So who knows what will happen? We've got a lot of things to watch for 2026. All of that being said, again, a big, massive warm welcome to everyone, to the Contrarian Capitalist. If you're yet to become a free subscriber, please do become a free subscriber. There are paid options available for those that want to dive into more asymmetric opportunities and more research into other various companies as well. So those options are available. There's a button, an upgrade to paid button, that will come in the post with this video as well. Before we sign off, though, just a couple of other interesting articles from the week that I think are worth pointing out. So, number one, I have linked to every bit of latest ongoing commentary that's coming out of Davos and Greenland and President Trump. That is in the news links article below. Secondly, some articles from Zero Hedge. Number one is the fact that Ukraine is defending itself with money that Europe doesn't have. So again, this goes into the simple theory of if your central bank or your government is printing a big bunch of currency, then what's going to happen from there? Well, your currency is going to get devalued, and therefore assets priced in that fiat currency are going to go to the upside. So that's worth watching on as well. I do think Europe, if it isn't already financially crippled, is certainly looking to financially cripple itself. And again, that's a whole different story. But I'm trying to put this into layman's terms as well. That's something to bear in mind moving forward. And then two articles that are linked to the UK. Number one is that UK households are going to get apparently £15 billion for solar and green tech to lower energy bills. Again, this has been ongoing for 5 or 6 years. The fact that what people in the UK aren't doing is they're not putting two and two together. That if you continue to go down the solar route, you continue to go down the wind energy route without having your baseload energy, so without having your nuclear, for example, then your bills are actually going to go up. But of course, the media and the government will spin it as, well, hey, if you do all of this, you can generate your own energy and your bills are going to be lowered. We've heard this for a very, very long time for anyone that's a UK resident. This has been part of the story, the narrative for a very long time. And again, where are you going to get £15 billion from? If you're going to look to print it, which I imagine they will, then of course that is going to lead again to more inflation down the road. And people wonder why the UK economy is struggling. I will point out we do cover the FTSE 100 in the market wrap. The FTSE 100 is not the best barometer of the health of the UK economy. The FTSE 250 is actually a bit of a better barometer as well. So don't just look at the FTSE 100 headlines and go, oh, the UK is fine. There's a lot bubbling away under the surface. But the point being here is, again, solar, wind, those sorts of things, they're all part of the narrative. They're part of the same narrative. And where are you getting £15 billion from? Again, you're probably going to be printing that into existence. And secondly, again, sticking with the UK, the government are offering cash payouts to people in financial crisis. So again, this is going to start from April 2026. And it's going to provide 1 billion annually for the next 3 years. It's not actually 100% clear where those funds are going to come from. But again, it's another case of government spending. Now, how efficient that's going to be, I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical when it comes to government spending and government efficiency and government spending efficiently. I don't think that happens too often. That's very few and far between. Again, if this is put to good use and does help people that are genuinely less fortunate in society, again, I'm all for that. I do think that some form of government packages and intervention are useful if they're put to good use. But I think that most people listening to this, you're going to be contrarians by nature. I imagine you're also very skeptical of efficient government spending. Does it exist? Well, yes, I'm sure there are some examples in history where it has worked. But again, it's that skepticism because, again, we're getting fed this narrative as well. And swinging that back to commodities and wrapping it up here is that if you see, with whatever country you live in, if you see your government is looking to spend like a drunken sailor, ask yourself, where's that cash coming from? If that cash is going to come in the form of currency printing, then that is going to add fuel to the inflationary fire. That is also going to mean that assets priced in that fiat currency are likely to go to the upside as well. We're seeing this in the US. Again, if you just look at a gold chart, it's gone up in euros, it's gone up in pounds, it's gone up in US dollars. There's a similar theme playing out here as well. But if you're going to take one word away from today, it is that word of uncertainty. Watch this space. Let's see what happens. And as always, again, because I get asked this all the time, this is not financial advice. This is not a financial recommendation. Always do your own homework. If you are trying to add a physical position in bullion here, and you are dollar cost averaging in my opinion, that's a very sensible thing to do. Even if we are at, $93, $94 in silver, I think that's a very sensible thing to do because there's a lot of room to run in the long run. If you're trying to look to trade this position, then good luck. And I'll go back to natural gas. Natural gas is up 47% this week alone. So again, if you somehow took a position over the weekend and went long, you're in a very good position. Natural gas, nat gas is the widow maker for a reason. My point being that if you're trying to increase your commodity exposure by having physical bullion, for example, your mentality is going to be completely different to if you're trying to trade the news, trade the headlines, and see what's going on. So always bear that in mind when looking at what you want to get out of this commodities bull market. And when that episode with Tom Bradshaw is live, or of course, if you want to become a paid subscriber and get early access, please do so. Do bear in mind that if a recession does hit, and it does hit the US, then the chances are that's going to have a massive impact, of course, in the US, but potentially globally as well. And again, that could have an impact in the short term on gold and silver prices. One other thing to keep an eye on, and I'm writing a post about this at the moment, is the impact of the yen, the impact of the Bank of Japan, and the rising 10-year yields over there. Again, I've just got some charts to add to it. I'm hoping to get that out on Thursday. There's a Bank of Japan decision rate being made on, I believe, Friday the 23rd of January. And again, that is worth watching because all of these things are interlinked. As mentioned before, please do subscribe to the Contrarian Capitalist. You can become a free subscriber. You can upgrade to paid, so you get in-depth analysis, access to the various market wraps and other videos, and early access to podcasts as well. You can always become a founding member, which is a one-off payment for life. And again, if you are running a business, speak to your tax advisor because I imagine that it's possibly a tax deductible expense as well. But again, please do speak to your relevant tax advisor. Have a fantastic week. Keep your eyes on all of the news that is coming out of Greenland and Davos and the US and so forth. I'll be back with the commodity wrap on Friday and, of course, that yen post on Thursday the 22nd. Have a great week and speak soon.